I am here today to formally announce charges against Mr. David DePape in connection with the violent attack on Mr. Pelosi. The charges that we are filing today include attempted murder, residential burglary, assault with a deadly weapon, elder abuse, false imprisonment of an elder, as well as threats to a public official and their family. Mr. DePape specifically targeted the Pelosi home to confront Speaker Pelosi. He forced his way into the home through a rear glass door by breaking that glass. The defendant made his way upstairs to the second floor of the home, locating Mr. Pelosi in his bed sleeping. He woke him up, confronting him about the whereabouts of Speaker Pelosi.
Many people, whenever something happens politically, incendiary politically, they always say, so let's stop and wait for the information to come out. Many times no one does that. Here's some of that information coming out from Brooke Jenkins, the San Francisco District Attorney, talking about the details of how the break-in happened, the assault happened, and things happened within that home at the Pelosi residence. But as we've already seen, many folks who are against Pelosi politically are actually just blowing right by all of those facts. Let's let her continue with more of these details. Pay attention to these details, because many people are talking about how they don't know these same details. We'll get to that, but let's let her keep going.
It was at some point after that Mr. Pelosi asked to go to the bathroom, which is where he was able to call 911 from his cell phone. The defendant, realizing that Mr. Pelosi had called 911, took Mr. Pelosi downstairs near the front door of the residence. 2 police officers arrived at the front door 2 minutes after that 911 call. When that door was opened, the defendant was holding his hammer, which Mr. Pelosi appeared to be attempting to control by holding a portion of that hammer. The defendant then pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently struck him in the top of his head. Police then immediately apprehended the defendant. What we also have learned is that the defendant brought to the location of the Pelosi residence a second hammer, as well as zip ties, rope, and a roll of tape.
Lots of details and information coming out. If you listen to it, you can see what it is that they're talking about and what it is that happened. Here's a little bit more as far as the motivations go. DePape, I'm still not gonna get it. He told police of his plans to hold Speaker Pelosi hostage to talk to her and viewed her as the leader of the pack of lies told by the Democratic Party. The H-page complaint details all of that. Here's a quote. If she were to tell DePape the truth, he would let her go. And if she lied, he was going to break her kneecaps, is what the complaint alleges. By breaking Nancy's kneecaps, she would then have to be wheeled into Congress, which would show other members of Congress there were consequences to actions. Again, the complaint went on to say that. Keep all that in mind. We just heard from the district attorney about those details. I hope it's still fresh in your mind, because Tucker Carlson, he had some questions last night. Ignoring the answers, he had questions.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. We've been watching this story all weekend with growing bewilderment. Last Friday morning, as you know, around 2 a.m., police arrived at the home of the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. It's in the Pacific Heights neighborhood of San Francisco. Inside the home, they found Pelosi's 82-year-old husband, Paul, and another man, 40 years younger, called David DePape. Nancy Pelosi was out of town at the time. In full view of the police, DePape hit Paul Pelosi in the head 2 times with a hammer. Both Pelosi and DePape were then taken immediately to a local hospital. Pelosi for his head injuries and DePape for reasons that are still not clear. But beyond those facts, there is much in this story that remains muddy. How, for example, did DePape get inside the Pelosi's home?
Things are very muddy, apparently, according to Tucker Carlson. But the report literally says how he got into the home. Let's look at that again in case Tucker wasn't reading, or maybe his producers were ignoring this part. DePape stated that he broke into the house through a glass door, which was a difficult task that required the use of a hammer. DePape stated that Pelosi was in bed and appeared surprised by him. DePape told Pelosi to wake up. maybe there's some answers there for you. Officers even mentioned the broken glass by the door. Later stated his backpack was near the broken glass. When officers removed DePape from Pelosi's residence, police body-worn camera footage showed a glass door that appeared to be laminated glass broken near the door handle. That's what San Francisco Police Department recovered, then zip ties and all that. It continues on. So Tucker also said that this defendant here was charged with assault and attempted kidnapping. Again, if you guys were listening at the beginning, the charges were actually against DePape are in addition to state charges, which said the San Francisco District Attorney said later on Monday these charges included, attempted murder, residential burglary, assault with a deadly weapon, elder abuse, false imprisonment of an elder, as well as threats to a public official and their family. But Tucker Carlson said it was just assault and attempted kidnapping. I guess he missed a few of those words. One more thing, because Tucker asked, who opened the door after all of that? Let's watch.
Here's how today's charging documents describe the scene inside the House. Quote, when the door was opened, Pelosi and DePape were both holding a hammer with one hand, and DePape had his other hand holding onto Pelosi's forearm. Pelosi greeted the officers. The officers asked them what was going on. DePape responded, everything was good. So it's an awful scene in some ways, but here's the critical clause. When the door was opened, well, opened by whom?
Opened by whom? One more thing from this on justice. DePape stated that they went downstairs to the front door. The police arrived and knocked on the door, and Pelosi ran over and opened it. Pelosi grabbed onto DePape's hammer, which was in his hand. Who? I don't know. Who knows what happened? Except I gotta listen to the district attorney talking about exactly what happened. Who knows? I don't know. As a matter of fact, I may ask more stupid questions so my audience can continue to think that there's not answers to all these things. Just admit it. You don't like what it is that you fomented, or maybe you do, Was.
Yeah, I mean, Tucker Carlson is gonna, he's smart enough to know he needs to avoid legal liability and pretend that the stuff that he doesn't incite people to do harmful things to others. But I think the crucial question is the state of mind of this guy, right? There's a couple of things we're up against here. Obviously, there's the hate speech that goes on the right wing in their media, both on Fox and on hate radio, talk radio, but also the state of our mental health care system in this country. I'm sure this brother's pretty unhinged, pretty out there, as we like to say about people who need help with their mental health. And so, you add those combinations together and you just get a potion for disaster. I will say this, this dude is unhinged, but he went to the right crib. Nancy Pelosi is one of the three most probably powerful Democrats in the world, to be honest. It's probably Obama, Biden, and Pelosi, if we're being real here. And so, he did go to the right ruling class person, but, I would hope these folks get more security and get more serious about their safety, because the stuff that's out there on the internet and on TV, the stuff that they're feeding these people on a day in, day out basis is scary as hell.
And that's in combination with the situation that they purposely are putting many folks in. Let's keep it real from across the board. There's people who hate the way politicians operate and they go, we need to change things because look at how they're screwing us over. And there's others that ignore the fact that there's this coordination between the richest of the rich and corporations with politicians that are put these plans together that only benefit these folks that have all this capital and influence over our politicians. And then in that case, they go, everything is so horrible. We have to attack one particular group of other people and certain politicians that our preferred politicians tell us to attack. So it's this rabid nature of desperation. And then once you're there, who cares what your actual political views are? Some people just kind of lose it. And they're like, that guy is saying enough angry, violent things that I'm gonna go with that as well, because I never liked Nancy Pelosi either. There's plenty of Democrats, plenty of libs, plenty of progressives who don't like Nancy Pelosi. But many of these liberal leaders are not going, hey, let's go attack. There's a difference.